hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. The crunch of forest debris beneath Boone Ellery's boots matched the rhythm of his heartbeat, steady, then faltering, then steady again. He gripped his father's axe, the worn handle smooth against his calloused palm. The forest around him stood silent, as if holding its breath. His phone vibrated in his pocket for the third time. Sheriff Towns. Boone knew what that meant. They found them. He answered with a gruff, "Ellery." "Boone, it's about your folks." Sheriff Towns' voice cracked slightly. "Highway 26, coming back from Portland. Logging truck, driver fell asleep. They didn't suffer, son." Boone's grip tightened on the axe handle until his knuckles went white. His throat closed up, but he managed to say, "I'll be there soon. Take your time. They ain't going anywhere." A pause. "I'm sorry, Boone. Your dad was a good man. Your mother, too." The call ended. Boone stood motionless among the towering pines that had witnessed his childhood, his growth, his father teaching him to swing this very axe. Now, they witnessed his grief, that he needed to call Callista. His wife should hear it from him, not through town gossip. Boone dialed, listening to the ring with a leaden feeling in his chest. When she answered, he could hear music in the background, laughter, the clink of glasses. "Boone." Callista's voice sounded distant, distracted. "What is it?" "We're at Maloris. My parents," he started, his voice rough. "They're gone. Car accident on Highway 26. A beat of silence. Then, "We're in the middle of my sister's birthday. Can we talk later?" The words landed like a physical strike. Boone said nothing, the forest around him blurring. "Boone, are you there?" He ended the call, staring at the screen until it went dark. Then he looked at the axe in his hand, his father's axe, and watched as it trembled with the shaking of his arm. He hadn't cried since he was 12, when he'd broken his leg falling from a tree stand. His father had carried him 3 miles back to the truck. "Pain's just a visitor, son," Ray had told him. "Acknowledge it, then show it the door." But this pain wasn't leaving. This pain had moved in and was rearranging the furniture. Boone raised the axe and brought it down on a fallen log with enough force to split it clean through, the crack echoing through the silent forest like a gunshot. "Are we going to Grandpa and Grandma's house?" Junie asked from the back seat, her voice small against the rumble of Boone's truck. Boone glanced in the rearview mirror. His daughter's eyes, so much like his mother's, watched him with a wisdom beyond her 8 years. "No, Pumpkin. We're going to the cabin." Junie nodded, understanding in her gaze. She looked down at the paper in her lap, a crayon drawing of 4 figures, a tall man with a beard, Grandpa, a woman with curly hair, Grandma, a smaller girl, herself, and a man in the middle, Dad, all holding hands, all smiling. The truck bounced along the dirt road, winding deeper into the forest. Trees crowded close on either side, their branches stretching overhead like reaching fingers. Boone had driven this road 1,000 times, but today it felt longer, heavier. The cabin appeared around the final bend, 2 stories of weathered logs and river stone, nestled against the backdrop of pines and firs. Smoke curled from the chimney. Someone had been here. Probably Sheriff Towns, knowing Boone would come. "Dad!" Junie's voice pulled him back. "Are you sad?" Boone cut the engine, the sudden silence pressing in. "Yeah, Pumpkin. I'm sad." "Me too." She unbuckled her seatbelt, clutching her drawing. "Can I put this on the fridge? So Grandpa and Grandma can see it when they visit heaven." Boone felt his chest tighten. "That's a good idea." Inside, the cabin smelled of pine, with smoke, and something else memory. Boone stood in the doorway, letting the weight of it wash over him. Every board in this place, every nail and beam, held his father's hands and his own. Summer, 18 years ago. Boone, lean and sun-browned, hefting a beam into place while his father secured the other end. "That's it, son. A good home needs a good framework. Like a good man. Is that what you're building, Dad?" "A man." Ray Ellery's laugh, warm and deep. "You were born a man, Boone. I'm just helping you find him." Junie tugged at his hand, pulling him from the memory. "Can I put my picture up?" Boone nodded, watching as she ran to the refrigerator, her small fingers struggling with a magnet shaped like a pine tree one his mother had bought at a craft fair years ago. "Why aren't you crying, Dad?" Junie asked suddenly, turning to face him with solemn eyes. Boone knelt down, bringing himself level with his daughter. Some hurts are too big for tears, Pumpkin. They need room to breathe. Junie considered this, then nodded as if it made perfect sense. She wrapped her small arms around his neck, holding tight. Mom should be here, she whispered against his ear. Yes, Boone agreed, the single word holding more truth than he wanted to admit. She should. That night, with Junie asleep in what had once been his childhood bedroom, Boone sat on the porch steps, a glass of his father's whiskey in hand. He hadn't touched the stuff in years, but tonight seemed to call for it. The forest was alive with night sounds. Owls calling, the rustle of nocturnal creatures, the distant murmur of the creek. His father had taught him to listen to these sounds, to understand the language of the woods. 12-year-old Boone, sitting beside his father on this very porch, eyes closed in concentration. What do you hear, son? Water. Wind. Something moving in the underbrush. Maybe a deer. Ray's approving nod. Good. The forest doesn't lie, Boone. People will tell you all sorts of things to get what they want, but nature, she's honest. Learn to listen to what's true. Boone took a sip of whiskey, letting it burn down his throat. His father had been right about nature. About people, too. His phone buzzed. 3 missed calls from Callista. He silenced it and slipped it back into his pocket. Some conversations could wait. Callista Vorn smoothed her silk blouse, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror of her sister's sleek Portland apartment. Behind her, Melora refilled 2 wine glasses. He's overreacting, Callista said, accepting the glass Melora offered. They weren't even that close anymore. Melora snorted, perching on the arm of her white leather sofa. Men and their mommy issues. Though I've got to say, hanging up on you was pretty cold. He's always been like that. Stoic to the point of stone. Callista took a generous sip. All those values his parents drilled into him. Work, truth, family. She emphasized the last word with a mocking lilt. Your family, Melora pointed out, twirling her glass by the stem. Or did Mountain Man forget that? Callista laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. I'm tired of being a ghost in someone else's family legacy. The Elries this, the Elries that. Their precious cabin, their forest, their traditions. So why did you marry him? Melora asked, though they both knew the answer. Security. Stability. Callista moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. Boone's solid. Dependable. Boring, Melora supplied. Sometimes. Callista didn't deny it. But that engineering job of his pays well, and his family has those timber holdings. She turned back to face her sister. I should say, Melora's perfectly shaped eyebrow arched. So what happens now? Does he inherit everything? I suppose. And Oregon's a community property state, isn't it? Callista took another sip, slower this time, considering. Yes. A smile spread across Melora's face, sharp as a knife's edge. If there's money now, you deserve half. She raised her glass. To new beginnings. Callista clinked her glass against her sister's, the sound ringing clear in the modern apartment. To getting what I deserve. A week passed in a blur of arrangements and quiet grief. Boone moved through it all with mechanical precision. The funeral home, the cemetery, the small gathering afterward at the cabin. Junie stayed close by his side, her small hand often finding his, anchoring him. Callista had attended the funeral, dressed appropriately in black, her face a mask of practiced sympathy. She'd kept her distance, respecting the wall Boone had built between them with his silence. Now, as Boone chopped wood behind the cabin, he heard the crunch of tires on the gravel drive. He didn't need to look to know who it was. The sound of her car, a sleek hybrid that seemed out of place among the pines, was distinctive. He kept chopping, each swing of the axe precise and controlled. Boone! Callista's voice carried across the yard. She stood at the corner of the cabin, dressed too formally for the surroundings in slim black pants and a cashmere sweater. He embedded the axe in the chopping block and turned to face her, saying nothing. Can we talk? She asked, taking a tentative step forward. Boone wiped his hands on his jeans. About what? Everything. This. She gestured vaguely. I know I haven't been present. Present. Boone repeated the word flat. Is that what we're calling it? Callista sighed, glancing around. Where's Junie? Inside. Drawing. As if summoned, Junie appeared in the doorway of the cabin. She watched them both for a moment, then walked across the yard, something clutched in her small hand. "Hi, Mom," she said, her voice neutral. "Hi, sweetie." Callista crouched down, arms outstretched for a hug that Junie didn't step into. "I've missed you." Junie held out an envelope. "This is for you." Callista looked surprised, but took it. "Thank you." "What is it?" "Read it," Junie said, backing up to stand beside Boone. Confused, Callista opened the envelope and removed a single sheet of paper. Boone watched her face as she read the words he and Junie had written together that morning, after she'd asked why her mother hadn't come to help them say goodbye to Grandma and Grandpa. Callista's hands began to shake. The color drained from her face as she looked up, first at Junie, then at Boone. "We've both lost something," she started, her voice unsteady. Boone just looked at her, his face impassive. "This isn't. I didn't." Callista held up the note, her composure cracking. "What is this?" "The truth," Boone said simply. "You didn't come for grief. You came for greed." Callista's eyes widened. "You think I know." Boone cut her off. "Melora called me. She was drunk. Told me everything about your little toast to getting what you deserve." The blood drained from Callista's face. "Boone, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly." He put a hand on Junie's shoulder. "We both do." Junie looked up at her mother, her young face solemn. "That's what this is really about, right?" Callista stared at her daughter, shock written across her features. Then she turned and walked quickly back to her car, heels sinking into the soft earth of the yard, the note still clutched in her hand. Boone and Junie watched her go, standing side by side in the yard where generations of Elries had stood before them. "Did I do good, Dad?" Junie asked quietly. Boone squeezed her shoulder. "You did, Pumpkin. Sometimes people need to hear the truth, even when it hurts. Like taking off a Band-Aid. Exactly like that." The law offices of Birch and Associates occupied the 15th floor of a downtown Portland high-rise, all glass and chrome and self-importance. Boone felt out of place in his one good suit, but he kept his back straight as the receptionist led him to a conference room. Callista already sat at the large table, Kellen Birch beside her. Boone recognized him from photos, tall, polished, with the practiced smile of a man used to getting his way. Callista's ex-boyfriend from before they met. Now, apparently, her lawyer. Mr. Ellery, Birch stood, extending a hand. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Boone shook it briefly, then took a seat across from them. "Let's get to the point." "Of course." Birch opened a leather portfolio. "First, let me express my condolences for your loss." Boone said nothing. Birch cleared his throat. "As you know, Mrs. Ellery has filed for legal separation, which in Oregon begins the process of dividing marital assets, including my parents' estate," Boone said flatly. "Under Oregon law, yes. As a community property state, any inheritance received during the marriage is considered joint property." Boone allowed himself a small smile. "Normally, yes." Birch paused, his confident expression faltering slightly. "I'm not sure I follow. My father didn't leave a simple estate," Boone explained. "He established a trust, with very specific conditions." Callista leaned forward. "What conditions?" "That's between me and the trustees." Birch's smile tightened. "Mr. Ellery, in a separation proceeding, full financial disclosure is required by law." "I'm aware." Boone reached into his jacket and pulled out a slim folder, sliding it across the table. "Here's my disclosure. Everything that belongs to me is listed." Birch opened the folder, scanning the contents with growing confusion. "This can't be right. The timber holdings alone are worth." "They're not mine," Boone interrupted. "They're held in trust. I'm a beneficiary, not an owner." "Big difference, legally speaking." Callista's face flushed with anger. "This is ridiculous. You're hiding assets." "I'm doing what my father wanted," Boone countered, keeping his voice level. "Protecting the family legacy." "I am family." Callista slammed her palm on the table. "Are you?" Boone asked, his gaze unwavering. "Because family shows up when it matters, not just when there's something to gain." Birch held up a hand, smoothing his tie with the other. "Let's all take a breath. Mr. Ellery, perhaps you're not familiar with how trusts are treated in divorce proceedings." "The courts can. I know exactly how they're treated," Boone cut in. "But first, we're not divorcing yet, just separating. Second, My father's trust has specific spendthrift provisions designed exactly for this scenario. And third, I've already filed a petition with the probate court to enforce those provisions. Birch's confident facade cracked further. You what? Filed first, Boone said simply. Yesterday. Callista exchanged a panicked look with Birch, who quickly regained his composure. This meeting is over, Birch announced, gathering his papers. We'll see you in court, Mr. Ellery. Boone stood, buttoning his jacket, looking forward to it. He left without looking back, the weight in his chest a little lighter than it had been when he arrived. He's got himself a shark, Boone said, leaning against the counter in Miriam Drexler's cluttered office. Kellen Birch. Miriam snorted, pushing her reading glasses up into her silver hair. That pretty boy? He spends more on hair product than law books. He's ambitious, Emmett Keyes pointed out from his seat by the window. The retired judge sipped from a mug of black coffee. And he's got connections with half the bench in Portland. Connections aren't law, Miriam countered, rifling through the stack of papers on her desk. And the law is on our side here. Ray set up that trust tight as a drum. Boone looked between the two of them. Miriam, his father's friend and lawyer for 30 years, fierce and sharp as a tack at 60. And Emmett, once the most respected judge in the county, now spending his days fishing and occasionally consulting on cases that interested him. Like this one. What about Junie? Boone asked. I need to make sure she's protected. She is, Miriam assured him, finding the document she was looking for. Ray made sure of that. The trust's primary purpose is to provide for her education and future. You're the secondary beneficiary, and Callista can't touch it. Boone pressed. Not directly, Emmett said carefully. But if she pushes, a judge might consider the income you receive as part of your overall financial picture. Which is why, Miriam cut in, we're going to activate the contingency clause. Boone frowned. What contingency clause? Miriam handed him the document she'd been searching for. The one that makes Junie the sole beneficiary in case of a dissolution of marriage, with you as guardian of her interests until she's 25. It's all there, paragraph 18. Boone scanned the dense legal text, understanding dawning. Dad put this in. I told you, Miriam said with a small smile. He sat uptight. Ray Ellery might have looked like a simple timberman, but he had a mind like a steel trap. A knock at the door interrupted them. Trent Holcomb stuck his head in, grease-stained baseball cap in hand. Sorry I'm late, he said, stepping inside. Had a transmission emergency at the shop. Boone clapped his oldest friend on the shoulder. Thanks for coming. Trent nodded, his weathered face serious. Heard you're taking on the fancy folk. About time. I need witnesses, Boone explained. People who knew my parents, who understand what they wanted for Junie. Count me in, Trent said without hesitation. Never did like the way your wife looked down her nose at this town. He caught himself. Sorry, man. Don't be, Boone replied. I'm seeing things clearly these days. Miriam gathered the papers into a folder. Okay, team. Here's the plan. He's not bluffing, Kellen said, pacing Melora's living room while Callista sat stiffly on the sofa. That trust is ironclad. So break it, Melora suggested, refilling her wine glass. Isn't that what I'm paying you for? Kellen shot her a sharp look. You're not paying me. Callista is. Same difference, Melora waved dismissively. There has to be a way, Callista insisted. Those timber holdings are worth millions. If Ray Ellery's will stand, none of that matters, Kellen explained. Everything goes to the trust, and the trust is structured to benefit the child. My child, Callista said sharply. His child, too, Kellen reminded her. And he's got custody at the moment while you're living here. He gestured around Melora's apartment. Temporarily, Callista snapped. Melora sat beside her sister. You need to push harder. Use the girl. What do you mean? Callista asked. Fight for custody. Make him think he'll lose Junie if he doesn't share the money. Kellen shook his head. That's dangerous ground. Judge Carmichael is handling family court cases this month, and she doesn't look kindly on using children as bargaining chips. Then find another angle, Melora pressed. Kellen hesitated, then sat on the coffee table, facing Callista. There is one possibility. We file an emergency petition to freeze all assets pending a full discovery process. Claim he's hiding assets, that he's a flight risk. Is he? Callista asked. Doesn't matter. It buys us time, puts pressure on him. Do it, Callista decided. Kellen nodded, then checked his watch. I need to go. I have dinner with Judge Westfield tonight. Old family connection. As he stood to leave, he placed a hand on Callista's shoulder, letting it linger. We'll figure this out. Maybe we could discuss strategy over dinner tomorrow. My place. Callista caught the implication in his tone, the slight squeeze of his fingers. I'll check my schedule, she said noncommittally. After he left, Melora gave her sister a knowing look. He wants more than your case. I know. Are you going to give it to him? Callista stared out the window, toward the hills where the Ellery cabin stood. If that's what it takes. Meanwhile, at the cabin, Boone stood behind Junie, guiding her hands on the axe handle. Not too tight, he instructed. Let the weight of the head do the work. Junie nodded, her face a mask of concentration. Together, they swung the axe down on a small log, splitting it cleanly. I did it, Junie exclaimed, her face lighting up. You sure did, Pumpkin. Boone smiled, a rare expression these days. Your grandpa would be proud. Do you think he can see me? Junie asked, suddenly serious. Boone considered the question, remembering his mother's quiet faith, his father's more practical outlook. I think, he said carefully, that the people we love never really leave us. They're part of us in how we see the world and what we do. Junie nodded, processing this. Like how I have Grandma's eyes and Grandpa's stubborn chin. Boone laughed, surprised. Who told you you're stubborn? Mom, Junie said. She said I'm stubborn like all the Ellerys. Boone's smile faded slightly. Being stubborn isn't always bad. Sometimes it means standing up for what you believe in. Is that why you won't let Mom have Grandpa's money? The question caught Boone off guard. Who told you about that? I heard Mom talking to Aunt Melora on the phone, Junie admitted. She was mad. Boone sighed, setting the axe aside and kneeling to meet his daughter's eyes. It's not about the money, Junie. It's about respect. Your grandpa worked hard his whole life building something for our family. For you. He wanted to make sure it was protected. From Mom. From anyone who doesn't understand its value beyond dollars. Boone hesitated, then added, Your mom and I see things differently sometimes. That doesn't mean she doesn't love you. Junie considered this, her young face serious. But she didn't come when Grandma and Grandpa died. She only came after. The simple truth of it, stated so plainly, hit Boone hard. That's right. What? That's something you'll have to ask her someday, Boone said, not wanting to poison his daughter against her mother, despite everything. Right now, let's focus on getting these logs split before dinner. Junie picked up a smaller axe. One Boone had shortened for her use. I could do it myself this time. Boone watched as she carefully set a small log on the chopping block, raised the axe, and brought it down with surprising strength for her size. The log split, not perfectly but enough. See, Junie said proudly. Stubborn helps. Boone felt a laugh bubble up from somewhere deep inside him, somewhere he thought might have died with his parents. It sure does, Pumpkin. It sure does. The courthouse loomed, gray stone against a slate sky, threatening rain. Boone climbed the steps beside Miriam, Trent, and Emmett flanking them like guards. Remember, Miriam murmured, let me do the talking. Judge Harper doesn't like grandstanding. Inside, the courtroom was already half full. Boone spotted Callista at the plaintiff's table with Kellen, both dressed impeccably. She didn't look his way. Judge Harper entered, a thin man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. After the formalities, he nodded to Kellen. Mr. Birch, this is your emergency petition. Proceed. Kellen stood, buttoning his designer suit jacket. Your Honor, we're seeking a temporary freeze on all assets related to the estate of Raymond and Linda Ellery, pending a full financial discovery. We have reason to believe Mr. Ellery is attempting to shield substantial assets from fair division under Oregon's community property laws. And these reasons are? Judge Harper asked, eyebrow raised. Mr. Ellery has made statements indicating his intention to exclude my client from a rightful share of marital property. Furthermore, the sudden conversion of assets into a so-called trust appears designed specifically to circumvent spousal claims. Judge Harper turned to Miriam. Ms. Drexler. Miriam rose slowly, the picture of calm confidence. Your Honor, Mr. Birch is either misinformed or deliberately misleading the court. The Ellery Family Trust was established 5 years ago, hardly a sudden conversion. I have the notarized documents here, along with tax filings confirming its existence and status. She approached the bench, handing over a thick folder of documents. Furthermore, the trust contains specific provisions regarding the event of marital dissolution, as is typical in estate planning. Kellen scoffed. Provisions designed to disinherit a spouse, which Oregon law specifically prohibits. Not disinherit, Miriam corrected. Redirect. There's a crucial difference. The judge flipped through the documents, his expression unreadable. Redirect how exactly? Miriam glanced at Boone, who gave a slight nod. She retrieved another document from her briefcase. Your Honor, I'd like to submit an amendment to the trust executed by Raymond Ellery 3 months before his death and properly notarized. This amendment stipulates that in the event of marital dissolution between Boone Ellery and Callista Vaughan, all benefit from the trust shall flow directly to their daughter, June Ellery, to be held in trust until she reaches age 25, with Boone Ellery serving as guardian of her interests and myself as trustee. A gasp escaped Callista. Kellen grabbed the document as soon as the clerk handed it to him, scanning it frantically. This can't be, he stammered. It's perfectly legal, Miriam assured him, and executed well before Raymond Ellery's death, with all appropriate witnesses and filings. Judge Harper studied the document carefully. The timing of this amendment is convenient, Ms. Drexler. Perhaps, Your Honor, but foresight isn't a crime. Raymond Ellery was concerned about protecting his granddaughter's inheritance. Events have unfortunately proven his concerns well-founded. The judge looked at Boone directly. Mr. Ellery, you're willing to forego your direct benefit from this trust? Boone stood. Yes, Your Honor. My father built something to last generations, not to be carved up in a legal battle. If putting everything in Junie's name protects what he built, I'm all for it. Judge Harper nodded slowly, then turned to Kellen. Mr. Birch, the petition for emergency freeze is denied. The trust amendment appears to be in order, rendering the assets in question beyond the reach of either Mr. Ellery or Mrs. Ellery personally. Kellen tried once more. Your Honor, we need time to examine this supposed amendment. You'll have time during normal discovery. Judge Harper cut him off. But the freeze is denied. These assets will remain in trust for the minor child, as specified. He banged his gavel. Next case. As they filed out of the courtroom, Boone caught Callista's eye for the first time. She looked stunned, defeated. Beside her, Kellen was already on his phone, his face flushed with anger. For the first time since his parents' death, Boone felt his lips curve into a genuine smile. Your dad would have loved this, Tren muttered beside him. Ray always did appreciate a good checkmate. It's not over, Miriam warned as they descended the courthouse steps. I know, Boone acknowledged. But round 1 goes to Junie. And to Ray, Emmett added. Don't forget that crafty old timberman. Boone looked up at the clearing sky, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. How could I? He's everywhere. The sign outside Melora's boutique read, Vaughan Designs, elevating the everyday. Inside, Callista arranged champagne flutes on a mirrored tray while her sister adjusted racks of overpriced clothing. Are you sure about this? Callista asked, surveying the space. A fashion event seems tone-deaf right now. It's damage control, Melora insisted, tilting a crystal vase of flowers. Half the women in this town are whispering about you. We need to change the narrative. From what to what? From gold digger who abandoned her grieving husband to successful businesswoman launching a new venture. Melora straightened a framed photo of Callista and herself. We're announcing your partnership in the boutique. New beginnings. Callista sighed, fingering the edge of her silk blouse. Without access to the Ellery money, her savings were dwindling fast. Kellen's legal fees weren't helping. The bell above the door chimed as the first guests arrived, women from Melora's social circle, their curious eyes taking in every detail of Callista's appearance. Callista, darling, One of them gushed with transparent insincerity. "How are you holding up? Such a difficult time for your family." "I'm well, thank you," Callista replied mechanically, offering a glass of champagne. "And your daughter?" "Poor thing. Losing her grandparents, and now this situation." "Junie is resilient," Callista said, her smile stiffening. "She gets that from her father." The woman raised an eyebrow. "Yes, the Elries are known for their backbone." As more guests arrived, the whispers grew barely more subtle. Callista overheard fragments, only showed up after the funeral, going after the timber money, living with her sister while he keeps the house. Melora clinked a spoon against her glass, calling for attention. "Ladies, thank you all for coming to this special event. As you know, Vorn Designs has always been about elevating everyday life through beauty and quality. Today, I'm thrilled to announce that my talented sister, Callista, will be joining the business as creative director." Polite applause followed. Melora continued. "Callista brings her unique vision and expertise to our brand at a time of new beginnings for her. We'll be expanding our home goods line under her direction, bringing that signature Vorn elegance to your living spaces." "Like she did to the Ellery cabin?" someone murmured, just loud enough to be heard. A ripple of uncomfortable laughter spread through the room. Callista felt her cheeks burn. Melora faltered, then pushed ahead. "We'd like to offer you a special preview of our new collection today, with a generous discount for all attendees." But the damage was done. The event limped along, with few sales and many excuses to leave early. When the last guest had gone, Melora slammed her glass down on the counter. "Well, that was a disaster. I told you it was too soon," Callista said quietly. "No, the problem is you," Melora snapped. "You let Boone make you look like the villain." "Me? You're the one who called him drunk and spilled everything." Melora waved this away. "One mistake. You're the one who had the golden goose and didn't even have the sense to keep him happy until the inheritance cleared." Callista stared at her sister, really seeing her for the first time. "Is that how you see my marriage? A meal ticket?" "Oh, please," Melora scoffed. "Don't pretend it was a great love story. You told me yourself you married him for stability." "That doesn't mean I didn't care for him," Callista protested, but the words sounded hollow, even to her own ears. "Whatever. The point is, you screwed up." Melora began gathering empty glasses. "And now we both have to deal with the fallout." Across town, at Junie's elementary school, a different kind of fallout was unfolding. "Class, for our family heritage project, I'd like each of you to share something special about your family," Mrs. Winters instructed. "Junie, would you like to go next?" Junie nodded and walked to the front of the room, carrying a worn leather-bound book. "This is my grandpa's forestry journal. He kept track of every tree he planted and harvested for 40 years. "That's wonderful, Junie," Mrs. Winters encouraged. "Can you tell us something about your family that makes it special?" Junie thought for a moment. "My dad says that in our family, we stand by each other no matter what. We show up when it matters." "That's a lovely value," Mrs. Winters smiled. "And is that something both your parents taught you?" Junie's face grew solemn. "My dad did. My mom." She paused, then said with the unfiltered honesty of children, "She didn't come when Grandma and Grandpa died. She came when she thought there was money." A stunned silence fell over the classroom. Mrs. Winters quickly redirected, "Thank you, Junie. Who would like to share next?" But the damage was done. By afternoon, Junie's words had traveled through parent texts and calls, adding another layer to the town's judgment of Callista Vorn Ellery. The Bell and Whistle Diner sat on the edge of Ash Hollow, a local institution with checkered tablecloths and the best pie in 3 counties. Boone slid into a booth by the window, nodding to familiar faces as he passed. Across from him, Kellen Birch looked out of place in his tailored shirt, no tie, but still too formal for the setting. "Thanks for meeting me," Kellen said, his tone professionally cordial. "You said it was important," Boone replied, signaling the waitress for coffee. After she poured 2 cups and left, Kellen leaned forward. "I'll be direct. This situation has become unnecessarily antagonistic. I believe we can reach a settlement that benefits everyone." "I'm listening." "Callista is willing to accept a one-time payment in lieu of ongoing claims against the trust." Boone took a sip of coffee. and in return, she drops all legal proceedings and agrees to a clean break. How much? Kellen named a figure that would have drained half the liquid assets of the trust. Boone nearly laughed. No, be reasonable, Boone. This protects Junie from a drawn-out legal battle. It protects you from other complications. Boone set down his cup carefully. What complications? Kellen's expression shifted, a hint of threat entering his smooth demeanor. Custody can be a messy process. Allegations get made. Even unfounded ones can damage a reputation. The implication hung in the air between them. Boone felt a cold anger settle in his chest. Are you threatening me? He asked quietly. I'm being practical, Kellen countered. Callista is Junie's mother. A judge might find it in the child's best interest to spend more time with her, especially if questions about your fitness as a parent arise. What questions? Grief can make people unstable, distant, sometimes even threatening. Kellen shrugged. These are things a concerned mother might observe. Boone looked at the man across from him, polished, calculating, empty. He reached into his jacket pocket and placed a small digital recorder on the table between them. What's that? Kellen asked, his confident smile faltering. Boone pressed play. Callista's voice filled the space between them. I only married him for what he could give me. Security, stability, not love. Never love. Then Melora's voice. So take him for everything he's got. It's only fair. Kellen's face drained of color. Where did you get that? Does it matter? Boone stopped the recording. There's more. Much more. Including a conversation where Callista suggests making false allegations to gain leverage. That's illegal, Kellen sputtered. Recording without consent. Oregon is a one-party consent state, Boone reminded him. And Melora called me, not the other way around. Boone slid a small thumb drive across the table. Here's a copy. If you try anything at all, this goes to the press, the Bar Association, and every judge in the circuit. Kellen stared at the thumb drive as if it might bite him. We're done here, Boone said, standing. He tossed a few bills on the table for the coffee. Tell Callista I'll see her at the mediation next week. She can have her clothes and personal items from the house. Nothing more. This isn't over, Kellen said weakly. Boone paused, looking down at the lawyer. For you it is. I've already filed a complaint with the bar about your suggestion of false allegations. Your firm will be notified tomorrow. He walked out, leaving Kellen staring after him, the thumb drive still untouched on the table. Rain lashed against the windows of the cabin, drumming a steady rhythm on the roof. Boone sat at the kitchen table, papers spread before him. When headlights swept across the yard, he wasn't surprised when Callista knocked. He'd been expecting this visit since Kellen had withdrawn from her case 3 days ago. She stood on the porch, rain dripping from her expensive coat, makeup perfectly intact despite the weather. Boone let her in without a word. Where's Junie? She asked, looking around the warmly lit cabin. At Trent's, his daughter's birthday party. Callista nodded, remaining near the door as if unsure of her welcome in the space that had once been partly hers. I fired Kellen. I heard. He said you. She paused, reconsidering her words. It doesn't matter. I'm here to talk directly. No lawyers. Boone gestured to the kitchen table. Say what you came to say. Callista sat, removing her wet coat and draping it over the chair beside her. I want joint custody of Junie. No, she's my daughter, who you've seen twice in the last month. Because you've made it difficult, Callista countered, a flash of anger breaking through her composure. How? Boone asked simply. You have my number. The address hasn't changed. Callista faltered, then tried a different approach. We were broken. I made mistakes. So did you. Mistakes can be forgiven, Boone said, his voice level. Calculations cannot. What does that mean? It means you didn't make a mistake, Callista. You made a choice. Every day for years, you chose to view our marriage as a transaction. That's not fair. When my parents died, Boone continued, cutting her off, you chose your sister's birthday over being there for me. When you realized there might be money involved, suddenly you were concerned about our future. He leaned forward, holding her gaze. I heard the recording. Callista, I only married him for what he could give me. Your exact words. Callista's face crumpled, the careful facade finally breaking. I was angry, hurt. People say things they don't mean, do they? Because from where I stand, it looks like the most honest you've ever been. Tears welled in Callista's eyes. What do you want from me, Boone? To beg? To grovel? Fine. She slid from the chair to her knees. I'm begging you. Don't take my daughter away. Boone looked at her, this woman he had loved, or thought he had kneeling on the floor his father had laid with his own hands. He felt no satisfaction, no vindication, only tiredness. Get up, he said quietly. This isn't about punishment. Then what is it about? She asked, remaining on her knees. Consequences. Truth. Boone stood, moving to the window to watch the rain. Junie needs stability right now. She's lost her grandparents. Her home life has been upended. I won't agree to joint custody, but I'll allow regular visitation. Supervised at first. Supervised? Like I'm some kind of... Like you're someone who's shown questionable judgment, Boone finished for her. Someone who needs to rebuild trust. Callista slowly rose to her feet. And the trust? My settlement. There is no settlement, Boone said flatly. Everything goes to Junie, as my father intended. You'll get spousal support based on my salary, nothing more. That's not enough. It was enough when you married me, Boone pointed out. Before you thought there was a timber fortune to be had. Callista grabbed her coat, anger replacing her tears. This isn't over. I'll find another lawyer. You're welcome to try. Boone turned from the window to face her fully. But the terms won't change. She moved toward the door, then stopped, one last card to play. I loved you once, you know, when we first met, before everything got so complicated. Maybe you did, Boone acknowledged. But love without loyalty isn't love at all. Callista opened the door, the sound of rain filling the cabin. Tell Junie I'll call her tomorrow. I will. She hesitated on the threshold. Do you hate me, Boone? He considered the question, searching his heart for the truth. No, I don't hate you. I just don't trust you anymore. Callista nodded once, accepting this, then stepped out into the rain. Boone watched her car disappear down the drive, taillights blurring in the downpour, but a small voice came from behind him. Dad! Boone turned, surprised to find Junie standing in the hallway, her party dress slightly rumpled. Pumpkin? I thought you were at Trends. The power went out, so they brought me home early. She looked toward the door where her mother had just left. Was that Mom? Yes. Is she coming back? Boone crossed to his daughter, kneeling down to her level. Not to live with us, but she wants to see you. Junie nodded, her young face solemn. I heard what you said. How much? That you don't hate her, but you don't trust her. Junie's eyes, so like his mother's, held a wisdom beyond her years. I don't hate her either. Boone pulled her into a hug, her small arms wrapping around his neck. That's good, Pumpkin. That's really good. When she pulled back, she studied his face carefully. Are you sad, Dad? A little, he admitted, but not like before. Because of Grandma and Grandpa. Because things change, Boone explained gently. And sometimes that hurts, even when it's for the best. Junie considered this. Like pulling off a Band-Aid? Boone smiled, recalling their earlier conversation. Exactly like that. They stood together in the doorway, watching the rain soften to a gentle patter against the earth. The cabin looked different, in summer light brighter, more alive. Boone had spent the spring replacing worn boards on the porch, fixing the leak in the roof that had plagued his father for years, adding a larger window in the kitchen to let in more light. Outside, the sound of children's laughter drifted up from the creek, where Junie and Tren's daughter, Maisie, splashed into shallow water, supervised by Tren's wife, Bethany. Boone drove the last nail into the new railing, satisfied with the solid feel of it beneath his hand. Tren emerged from the trees, carrying a cooler of drinks. Looks good, he commented, setting the cooler on the porch. Your dad would approve. He was never one for change, Boone said, putting his hammer away. But he understood growth. Speaking of growth, Tren popped open 2 beers, handing one to Boone. Heard your forestry program got approved for that grant. Boone nodded, taking a seat on the porch steps. Start with 6 kids this fall, teaching them sustainable management, practical skills. Raise legacy, Tren observed, sitting beside him. Hope so. They drank in companionable silence. watching the girls splash downstream. After a while, Tren spoke again. Callista came by the shop yesterday. Asked about you. Boone's expression remained neutral. What did you tell her? That you're doing fine. Better than fine. Tren hesitated. She looked different. Humbler, maybe. She's been good with Junie lately, Boone acknowledged. Regular visits. No drama. People can change. Sometimes. Tren didn't push it. He knew Boone well enough to recognize when a subject was closed. Inside the cabin, the phone rang. Boone rose to answer it, returning a few minutes later with an envelope in hand. Good news, Tren asked, noting Boone's expression. Remember that trail system my parents wanted to establish? Making parts of the timber property public access. Tren nodded. Ray talked about it for years. The foundation just approved it. Boone opened the envelope, showing Tren the letter. They're naming it after them. The Ray and Linda Ellery Trail System. Holy shit, man. That's incredible. Boone smiled a full, genuine smile that reached his eyes. It's what they would have wanted. A legacy that's not just about money or property, but about sharing something with the community. The girls came running up from the creek, dripping wet and laughing. Dad, Junie called. We found a salamander. A real one. Did you now? Boone crouched down as Junie opened her cupped hands to reveal a tiny orange amphibian. Can I keep it? She asked, eyes wide with hope. What does a salamander need to live, Pumpkin? Junie thought for a moment. Water, rocks, bugs to eat. And where do all those things naturally exist? The creek, she realized, her face falling slightly. That's right. So what do you think is the kindest thing to do for your new friend? Junie sighed. Take it back home. Boone nodded encouragingly. You can visit him whenever you want. This whole forest is our backyard. Our backyard, Junie repeated, looking around at the trees and hills that had been Ellery land for generations. I like that. Later, after Tren and his family had gone, Boone sat with Junie on the porch swing his father had built, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and purple. Dad, Junie asked, her head resting against his arm. Are you going to be okay? Just us. Boone looked down at his daughter, this miracle who carried his mother's eyes and his father's determined chin and something entirely her own that amazed him daily. We already are okay, Pumpkin, he assured her. More than okay. But Mom's not here. Your mom loves you in her own way, Boone said carefully. And she's still your mom, even if she doesn't live with us. Some families look different than others, but that doesn't make them any less real. Junie seemed to accept this, nestling closer. I'm glad we have a cabin. Me too. As the last light faded from the sky, Boone thought about the lessons he wanted to pass on to his daughter. Not just how to split wood or identify trees, but how to recognize what matters who matters when it counts. Hey, Junie, he said softly. Remember what I told you about people who show up? She nodded against his shoulder. When someone shows up only after the storm clears, they weren't with you through it, she recited. You build with those who stand in the rain. That's right. Boone pressed a kiss to the top of her head. And we're going to build something amazing. Above them, stars appeared one by one in the darkening sky, watching over the cabin that had sheltered generations of Elries and would shelter generations more in the distance. An owl called. Its voice carrying through the forest that had been his father's sanctuary, was now his, and would someday belong to the small girl beside him, her breathing growing steady as she drifted towards sleep. Boone Ellery sat in the gathering darkness, at peace for the first time in months, the weight of absence. Finally lifting from his shoulders, not gone, never gone completely, but transformed into something he could carry without breaking, something like hope.